Anubis, the enigmatic canine-headed god, has fascinated mortals for centuries. Rising from the scorching sands of ancient Egypt, his presence signifies the passage between life and death, burial rituals, and the eternal protection of the departed. Inspired by the jackals and wild dogs roaming necropolises, he emerged as a divine guardian, bridging civilization and the unknown. This figure, cloaked in the black of fertility and rebirth, seems to rise from the desert itself to guide souls to the afterlife. Unlike other Egyptian gods whose deeds fill countless myths, Anubis appears quietly, almost invisibly, yet remains deeply embedded in the daily spiritual life of the Egyptians. Though rarely the star of divine epics, his role was vital as a protector, tomb guardian, and psychopomp. Most crucially, he presided over the art of embalming, a sacred rite not just of preservation, but of transformation. To understand Anubis, one must look into the legends of his origin. His parentage varies. In some tales, he is the son of Osiris and Isis. In others, he is born from a secret union between Osiris and Nephthys, the wife of Set. In the more widely accepted version, Nephthys hides the child in the desert out of fear. When Isis discovers the child, she rescues and adopts him. Thus, Anubis grows under her protection, accepted by Osiris as his own. Even as a youth, Anubis stood out for his keen instincts, quiet vigilance, and connection to rituals of transition. His destiny unfolded when Set, driven by envy, murdered Osiris, striking him into a coffin, casting it into the Nile, and then dismembering his body across Egypt to cover his tracks. In response, Isis, Nephthys, Thoth, and the now-grown Anubis set out to recover Osiris's remains. Anubis, guided by his unerring sense of smell, found the head first. With Thoth's help, a clay body was crafted, and through incantations, the reanimated head revealed the locations of the missing parts. Anubis, as a loyal messenger, recovered each piece and performed the first embalming in divine history. He wrapped the body in sacred linens, anointed it with oils and resins, and with Isis's magic, Osiris was miraculously brought back to life. Anubis became his eternal guardian, ensuring no desecration would undo what had been restored. Yet Set was not finished. Obsessed with destroying Osiris, he launched another assault. Legend says he even disguised himself as Anubis, mimicking his movements and voice to deceive the sentinels. He managed to enter the sacred chamber and steal one of the canopic jars that held Osiris's vital organs. Despite these schemes, Anubis remained the unwavering protector, a symbol of vigilance, resurrection, and sacred duty. His story, woven through shadows and secrecy, secured his place as one of the central figures of the Egyptian underworld. The vessel held vital importance, as it was believed that the spiritual essence of Osiris was partly bound to those organs. Without hesitation, Set fled to the desert with the intent to thwart Osiris's future reintegration and to extinguish any hope of divine resurrection. When Anubis discovered what had happened, he felt deeply insulted. Someone had used his name and appearance to desecrate what he had sworn to protect. Alongside Horus, the young son of Osiris, and Isis, he embarked on a relentless pursuit to capture the culprit behind this treacherous deed. For days, the two gods tracked footprints in the sand, driven by their determination to recover the vessel containing Osiris's entrails. Eventually, they caught up with Set in a distant valley, beyond the borders of cultivated Egypt. There, a fierce battle ensued. Tradition holds that the roaring winds and the crashing of rocks echoed throughout the desert, as if the very earth trembled at the clash of divine forces. Cornered, Set fought with superhuman ferocity to defend the stolen relic. Yet the combined tenacity of Horus and Anubis prevailed, and they subdued him. After his capture, they brought him before the tribunal led by Ra, the great solar god and supreme judge, who found him guilty of sacrilege and murder and sentenced him without mercy. Still, in a final cunning move, Set escaped once more, dragging with him the precious entrails of Osiris. He sought refuge in a remote land where chaos reigned, devoid of law or order. Enraged, Horus pursued him again, driven by filial duty and a profound sense of justice. This time, the retrieval of the vessel had a decisive outcome. After confronting Set again, Horus seized Osiris's remains and concealed them in a special sanctuary, sealed by magic and crowned by a sacred hill, guarded by a giant serpent. Anubis, eager to complete his vengeance, awaited Set's return, who appeared transformed into a leopard. Set tried to sneak in stealthily, but Anubis stood as his relentless guardian. The confrontation was tremendous. Ultimately, Anubis defeated the usurper, stripping off his spotted skin, dismembering him alive, and castrating him, delivering a death fitting for his crimes. Though Set seemed eradicated forever, chaos never fully dies. Rumors later arose that Set had reincarnated, not necessarily as a malevolent figure, but as a god with bovine or ram-like features, kinder than his predecessor. This new incarnation was named Bada, and curiously, he was described as Anubis's younger brother, adding an unexpected twist to the family saga. It is said that in those early days, Anubis owned a vast agricultural estate and large herds, while Bada tended the land and cared diligently for the cattle. Under his care, the livestock thrived, the cows produced abundant, high-quality milk, and the fields yielded generous harvests. Their lives passed in harmony. Until Anubis's wife, drawn by Bada's vigor and youth, sought to seduce him. Loyal to his brother, Bada firmly rejected her advances. To hide her betrayal, the wife falsely accused Bada of attempted abuse. This lie ignited Anubis's wrath, and blinded by rage, he chased Bada with intent to kill. Desperate, Bada fled, saved only by divine intervention. Thus, the brothers' bond was shattered by the poison of slander. The next day, calmer, they spoke and the truth emerged. Anubis, repentant upon realizing his wife's deceit, sought reconciliation. But Bada, scarred by betrayal and an attempt on his life, chose to sever ties permanently, departing northward beyond Egypt to the region now associated with Lebanon. There, he lived in solitude, consumed by melancholy, and in an extreme act of renunciation, castrated himself to avoid any temptation or relationship that could bring further misfortune. Years passed until the Aeneid, the council of 9 gods of Heliopolis, took pity on him and fashioned a perfect wife, a woman of unparalleled qualities, so beautiful that even the sun would have felt honored to illuminate her face. At first, Bada felt grateful and happy with his companion. But news of her beauty reached the pharaoh of Egypt, who, obsessed with possessing her, assembled an army and captured her to make her his concubine. Fearful and desperate, she revealed Bada's weakness, the only way to kill him. Upon learning this, the pharaoh sent soldiers to execute the deadly order, and Bada fell victim to betrayal once more. Anubis, upon hearing of his brother's death, traveled tirelessly to recover his body. In a supreme act of compassion, he collected Bada's heart and placed it in a bowl of pure water, reciting ancient incantations to restore life. A miracle occurred. Drinking the water, Bada's spirit revived, and his body was restored, but now as a magnificent bull. Bada returned to Egypt with Anubis. Unaware of the bull's true identity, the pharaoh accepted it as a valuable gift and housed it in his stables. The concubine, once Bada's wife, recognized in the bull's eyes the essence of her former husband and, fearing his vengeance, begged the pharaoh to sacrifice the bull. Unfortunately, the ruler agreed, and Bada died again. Yet, divine life does not easily fade. 2 drops of the bull's blood fell to the ground, sprouting splendid plants that grew within the palace. The concubine, intent on erasing all traces, ordered the plants cut for furniture, but unknowingly swallowed seeds imbued with Bada's spirit. For the 3rd time, Bada was reborn, this time as a legitimate prince of the royal house. He grew strong and wise, and upon the pharaoh's death, he inherited the throne of Egypt. He ruled for 30 years with justice and wisdom, always mindful of the betrayals and humiliations of his past lives. At last, when his mortal time came to a natural end, Bada prepared to return to the divine realm, where his true bovine deity nature could be fully expressed. Before departing, he sealed a final reconciliation with Anubis, recognizing him as his rightful successor and granting him possessions and honors. Thus, with Bada's departure, Anubis completed his mission on Earth and established himself as the god who guides the dead and guards the sacred places where body and soul begin their journey into eternity. Having completed this stage, Anubis took the path that only the gods can travel. It is said that since then, he has resided in the afterlife, fulfilling his primary task to watch over the deceased, protect them, and serve as an auxiliary judge in the great tribunal that decides the fate of souls. Although later stories barely mention him, His influence took root in every aspect of the funerary cult. No tomb was considered complete without the image or blessing of the one who had learned, through his own experience, the value of justice and loyalty in the realm of the dead, a place the Egyptians imagined as the beautiful West, the land of the blessed. Anubis became the ultimate guide. The ancients believed the soul had to travel a path filled with obstacles, traps, and hostile creatures. Some texts mention hungry specters that lurked for careless souls, shadowy beings that attacked anyone without proper protection. For this reason, many sought Anubis's favor, as his presence drove away evil spirits and guaranteed safe passage. Occasionally, the goddess Hathor, with the head of a cow, is mentioned as another possible guide for travelers of the afterlife. However, over time, most preferred to be protected by Anubis, whose rituals and representations had gained great fame throughout Egypt. The fact that he had guarded Osiris's body and performed the first divine mummification made him the perfect example of fidelity and effectiveness in the face of death. This prestige became so solid that during funerary ceremonies, the priest in charge of embalming the deceased often covered his head with a jackal mask, symbolizing Anubis's presence. For the Egyptians, death was not an absolute end, but a transition to another form of existence that required the help and blessing of this god to guarantee spiritual continuity. In the Underworld, Anubis also acted as the deceased's companion during the famous weighing of the heart, a judgment held before the tribunal of Osiris, who presided over the hall with impartiality and solemnity. The deceased's heart, containing their deeds and memories, was placed on one side of the scale, while on the other rested the ostrich feather representing the goddess Maat, symbol of justice and universal harmony. If the heart was lighter than the feather, it meant the person had led a righteous life, free of serious faults, and thus deserved to enter the Egyptian paradise known as Aru, or the Fields of Reeds. But if the heart weighed more, it meant sins outweighed virtues. And the devouring beast called Ammit, a combination of crocodile, lion, and hippopotamus, would destroy the heart, condemning the soul forever. Yet there are stories of Anubis, moved by compassion, subtly manipulating the scale in favor of certain souls. This ability stemmed from his close involvement with the ritual and deep knowledge of souls. Though rare, it was believed that Anubis could tip the scale slightly to protect those who earned his sympathy. Nevertheless, the final judgment remained in Osiris's hands, who, after hearing testimonies and seeing the true weight of the heart, issued the definitive verdict. The Egyptian embalming process went beyond mere preservation of the corpse. For them, death was like an illness that could be cured through sacred rites and formulas. That is why priests, embodying Anubis, applied ointments, resins, and bandages to maintain the body's form and prepare the deceased for rebirth in the realm of the dead. This practice was based on the idea that surrounding the body with care favored the soul's survival. Even the heart had to be protected, as it was the seat of conscience and morality. In certain ceremonies, symbolic openings of the mouth and ears were performed so that upon awakening in the afterlife, the deceased could speak, see, hear, and breathe. Anubis was believed to assist in these procedures, restoring sensory capacities and even making the heart beat again in the spiritual realm. It is no surprise, then, that Anubis is recognized as Lord of the Necropolis and presider over embalming. In statues, reliefs, and papyri, he appears with a human body and a black canine head, a color referring to the fertility of the Nile's dark soil and to the regeneration of flesh. His role was that of a divine physician, a guardian who, instead of stealing bodies from tombs, protected them and returned them to a new form of existence. Throughout Egyptian history, Anubis received many names and honorific titles. He was called Impu or Ampu in the oldest hieroglyphic texts, terms linked to dogs and jackals. Other epithets include he who is on his mountain, referring to the hills bordering the Nile valleys where jackals prowled. Or O Lord of Secrets, recognizing his mastery of rituals and hidden arts. He was also known as he who counts hearts, since in the final judgment he weighs the hearts of the dead and records their deeds. Some passages mention him as guardian of the gates of the underworld. The wide variety of titles reflects the many roles Anubis acquired as the cult of Osiris expanded. He became part of the myths and ceremonies of the Assyrian family, accepted as a major funerary god. It is paradoxical that despite so many names and representations, few stories place Anubis in a central role. However, his image as protector and guide of souls became so entrenched that for centuries almost every tomb or funeral rite contained some reference or image of him. Different cities built sanctuaries to worship him, notably the region the Greeks called Sinopolis, the city of the dog. Over time, Egypt was conquered by foreign powers: Assyrians, Persians, Alexander the Great, the Ptolemaic dynasty, and finally the Romans. Yet the cult of Anubis persisted, adopting syncretic adaptations. The Greeks merged him with Hermes, another psychopomp who guides souls to the underworld, creating the deity known as Anubis. Later representations tried to assimilate him with local deities, and some have even suggested that early images of Saint Christopher with a canine head might echo Anubis's iconography. In any case, the enduring image of Anubis in Egyptian popular memory is tied to his ability to watch over, accompany, and judge human actions. During funerary ceremonies, his name was invoked to ensure a peaceful transition, and in the collective imagination, his black and imposing figure stood firm against chaos. His legendary cunning, loyalty to Osiris, and dedication to protecting the dead built a reputation hard to match. Today, when we delve into Egyptian funerary texts or gaze upon the reliefs of mastabas and pyramids, Anubis's silhouette often appears at the crucial moment when the deceased soul prepares to make the final leap into eternity. Even though his prominence in the Egyptian pantheon stories may be less than other gods, the symbolic power of his figure is undeniable. In his own way, Anubis remains a guardian waiting for travelers on the shore of the great desert that separates life from death, ready to escort them with the seriousness and compassion of one who understands life's fragility. Thus, the story of Anubis, with all its variations and secrets, reminds us of the importance of loyalty, justice, and protection for the helpless. From the moment of his birth, guarded by dogs symbolizing nobility amid adversity, to his role as the arbiter of the final judgment, his journey illuminates the Egyptian belief in life's continuity beyond the tomb. May his footprints remain etched in Egypt's sacred sands, a testament that the passage to the other side deserves as much respect and care as life itself. Anubis, eternal guardian of invisible gates, lives on in every story that delves into the mystery of death and the hope of rebirth. They say Anubis judged fairly, but what if he didn't? What if some souls got a divine pass? If that makes you uneasy, you're not alone. Subscribe, hit the bell, and tell us what you really think. Was Anubis a god of order or a master of quiet manipulation?